Welcome to Comicstorian, where we take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues. We go into the video games, the comic books, the movies. We break them down into a synopsis or turn them into an audio drama. We allow you to understand the lore of your favorite universe while getting on with your busy day. And today, we're going to tell you one of the tales of the dark multiverse. You see, in DC Comics, there is a multiverse in which different things happened in different dimensions, creating different results. And they recently discovered a dark multiverse, a universe where all of the worst things possible have happened. In an interesting twist, DC has decided to bring us the Tales of the Dark Multiverse, a series deep diving into some of the classic storylines and telling us the alternate take on what happened within them. And today's story is going to be the story of Knightfall. Now, many people know of the story in which Batman's back was broken by Bane and the character Jean-Paul Valley took over as Batman. This is a story from the 90s, but what if things went a little differently? Tempus Fugit stands, his ever-present gauge watching over the expanse of the multiverse. His power, his curse, is that he can move freely between the multiverse and its dark counterpart. He knows that a crisis is coming, possibly the greatest yet. He has come to stare into the dark abyss and see if any of these mutated worlds could be useful in the coming fight. To see if any of the heroes that are forged in the fires of fear can be useful in the upcoming crisis. He turns to a world not unlike our own. In the darkness of Gotham, the bat is broken. He turns his mantle over to the one known as Jean-Paul Valley, who twists the vision of Batman into something darker, deadlier. And eventually, Bruce returns to retake his city from the darkness. Yet in this world, he is not successful, and he feels the piercing of Azrael's blade through his chest. That was the end of Knightfall. Years pass, and the city is purged in holy fire and it's rebuilt. And 30 years pass in a moment as Tempest watches. In the Dumas house, formerly known as Wayne Manor, Jean-Paul waits on the day's reports. His breathing is labored, as years of protecting his vision has taken its toll on him. Your city is secure, Madeline, his secretary, tells him, but there is an issue that requires your attention. Valley pulls on his armor, his breathing labored as Madeline informs him that they have apprehended an outsider in the city. The man, Luis Ramos, was smuggled in by Oswald Cobblepot. His assortment of weapons speak to his intentions, she tells him. She informs him of the events taking place throughout the United States, the panic and the pandemics. But Valley interrupts her. The outside world does not concern us, he tells her, giving orders to have Cobblepot and Ramos brought to the Torchbearer. But my presence will not be possible. I have other matters to attend to. He gasps at her and she nods. Ah yes, that's today, isn't it? She reaches out her hand, caressing the Valley lovingly. Must you really put yourself through that once more, she asks. But Jean-Paul nods, leaning heavily on the banister next to her. I made a promise, Madeline. And what are we without the staples of tradition? Finally, he slides on his helmet, connecting the tubes to his back. The greenish liquid begins to flow and the venom begins to pump into his system. Valley stands taller, his breathing no longer forced. And he crosses the cave, heading to his Batmobile. The Cardinal and the Torchbearer have my proxy. Make sure that judgment is served, he tells her over his shoulder. The sun begins to set over Wayne Manor, which is thrust to the heavens from the center of Gotham City. The end of the third Sunday, during the last month of the summer, a constant of our time together, Jean-Paul states as he crosses the vast chamber at the top of the tower. He reaches out his clawed hand to the person in front of him. Yet today I wonder, will this be the day that changes everything? Will this be the day that you finally admit the truth? Bruce. Bruce hangs from the machine, having nothing more than a torso with his head attached to wires and tubes. His brain can be seen through a jar, pulsing gently. Bruce quickly deduces the reason that his forces have gathered in the center of Gotham. Cobblepot, I'm surprised it's taken you this long. Valley nods. So I have your approval. You have my disdain. The claws contract on Bruce's face, and whatever feeling he still has sends pain coursing through what's left of his body. Valley finally turns, noting that Bruce's seizures have grown worse every day. As always, I come offering peace. The simplest acknowledgement, and all of your pain will end. Bruce asks, "What about Alfred, Tim, Dick?" And Valley turns. He tells Bruce that he did what none of them could. He kept Gotham standing. "I was always the Batman that this city needed, Bruce. You only need to say it, and peace will find you." But Bruce refuses. "You're weak, paranoid, and doped up on more and more venom. Your grasp is slipping. When the next crisis comes, and I promise you, it always comes, you will falter and you will fall." For a brief moment, the two stare at each other until Valley finally turns. "Until next year, Bruce," he calls as he exits the chamber. In the city's center, Oswald Cobblepot and Luis Ramos kneel before the warriors known as the Torchbearer and the Cardinal, the armies of Saint Batman behind them. "Oswald Cobblepot, you've been charged with aiding and abetting and facilitating access to weapons of war." The proxy begins, but Oswald attempts to interrupt, trying to explain that he doesn't know the man and has never met him before. "You are hereby found guilty. Your sentence is death. By the glorious and righteous flame." The Torchbearer passes judgment, lifting his flaming sword. Though Cobblepot tries to plead his case, the words fall on deaf ears, and the flaming sword of judgment is swung. The blade cleaves his head from his shoulders, and before it can fall, the Torchbearer turns his gaze upon another. "Luis Ramos, you have been charged with unlawful entry into Gotham City." But Ramos doesn't seem afraid, staring up into the holy flame, determination in his eyes. "Do what you will. It doesn't change what is coming," he tells him. "I am just the beginning." The blade falls once more and the proceedings are finished. The two men turn to the gathered soldiers and the Torchbearer raises the blade high. "For Gotham!" The darkened streets of the city echo with the cries. Yet even as those cries go out, a different sound fills the night air. Explosions rocking through Gotham, erupting one after another. In his bed, Valley sits up, trembles, bringing him out of his fitful sleep. He turns, looking out the window to see his city ablaze, the smoke creating a haze that hangs over Gotham in a cloud. Beneath the manor, he demands a report. "Explosions, my love," Madeline tells him. "Several Acolyte halls have been targeted, and I don't know how many are dead." The screens suddenly flash, and the Torchbearer appears, giving his report. Heretics are flooding the streets, aided by a shadow army. They raid the main cathedral, trying to wrest control of the city. "Sir, it's a coup." Determination and anger fill John Paul's face. "Then we will meet them head on," he tells them, opening his armory to reveal rows of venom vials. Saint to sinner. Throughout the streets of Gotham, the police fight against their shadowy opponents, with so much death and destruction that no one even notices the single man crossing the river. "The swim is easier than what we trained for," his simple reply, and quietly the young man begins to slip through the city, avoiding the fighting, using it to his advantage to stay unnoticed. Finally, he reaches the base of Wayne Tower, slipping through the shadows, removing the guards with a few well-placed strikes, and one turns, seeing him descend. The shadowy killer leaves him alive, though, and as he makes his way towards the entrance of the tower, the guard struggles for his radio, calling in backup. That elevator chimes, and it opens, and the red-hooded figure states, "I heard what they did to you." Bruce tries to turn, but he can't see over his shoulder. "Who are you?" The man removes his hood, revealing his face. "My name's Turn. I'm here to save you and liberate Gotham," he tells the former Batman. But Bruce doesn't think the boys' plan will work. He knows that they aren't the first to try an assault on Gotham. "Hands up!" the police yell as they enter the chamber, weapons trained on the young assassin. But Turn just smiles, pulling up his hood and putting his mask back on. "Did I forget to mention who my father was?" Suddenly the boy begins to grow bigger, his muscles bulging and his veins sticking out on his arms. With a roar of rage, he charges at the soldiers, who open fire, but the bullets seem to have no effect. Turn attacks, his blows cleaving the men in half, each punch breaking bones, each blow taking a man's life. And finally, the soldiers lay dead around him, with the boy returning to his normal size. "I'm sure you're wondering where the tubes are, among other things." Turn informs him that his body produces the venom toxins naturally, the strange side effect of his father's constant use of the drug. The boy begins to cut Bruce free of the machine. The son of Bane and the one true Bat teaming up to save Gotham has a nice ring to it, don't you think? In the city streets, the fighting continues, but suddenly Saint Batman and his followers descend from the shadows. Saint Batman's claws slash and stab as Cardinal's machine gun fires rounds into the assaulting armies. In the heat of the battle, Jean-Paul could hear a voice whispering in his ear. You can feel it as we yell. The tactics, the assaults designed to exhaust you. You are losing control. The ghostly voice from the past hisses, just as you did before. With a tug, the warrior's neck snaps in Saint Batman's hands, and he looks on at the battle. I will not fail. He gasps, falling to his knees. His men move to help him, but Valley waves them away when suddenly the comms begin to bark, and Madeline informs him that one of the explosions took out the retaining wall on the eastern coast. A portion of the city is starting to sink, she tells him. He turns back to his men, ordering them to take and hold the cathedral, and he activates the Venom once more, feeling strong. I must deliver Gotham from ruin. Beneath the city, Turn is carrying Bruce through the sewers on his back. Did you ever meet him? Bruce asks, speaking of Bane. Memories of Saint Batman piercing Bane's chest with a blade flashing through his mind. Another seizure then pulses through Bruce's remains, and Turn is forced to put him down. Did he really amputate your limbs one every year? Saint Batman has conviction. Besieged by weakness, a voice calls out, and from the shadows, Lady Shiva steps out. Hello, Bruce. Propping him up against the wall, Shiva stands over her once enemy. And she reminds him that a lifetime ago, he came to her wishing to train to reclaim his city. I've returned now to finish what we started. Why? Shiva tells him that Gotham has always been a beacon under Batman's protection. When you fell, when Gotham fell, something broke. If the world could see Batman fighting alongside the son of his worst enemy, the world can stand again. Shiva places a glowing device on the ground by Bruce, pressing a button. From the box, a cloud of strange black begins to rise. I have the means to give your body back. The only question is, do you still have the will to become the Batman that the city needs? On the east coast of the city, Saint Batman stands, surveying the destruction. He leaps into the water, swimming deep into the swirling darkness, and one of the support pillars begins to fall. He presses hard, trying to push it back into place. The great Azrael, reduced to this, a ghost voice calls to him. He turns, seeing the ghostly image of Saint Dumas wavering in the darkened waters. Tell me, Jean-Paul, is this truly the way that it ends? The pillar shifts, beginning to topple and crush Valley beneath it. I've always been here, Jean-Paul, in your moments of great weakness to watch you fail. But the anger begins to course through Valley as he pushes the button to activate his Venom intake. I am the one true Batman! He snarls, lifting the pillar. Even your time as Azrael, you never lived up to the mantle. Dumas tells him, you are a failure, an imitation. With a final shove, Saint Batman pushes the pillar back into place, saving this part of the city. I have saved the wall. I've stabilized the wall. You are wrong, Dumas. I have succeeded. But the voice continues. Yet you will die in the same way that you lived. Suddenly the venom isn't enough, and the darkness begins to overtake Jean-Paul as he sinks deeper into the water. Weak, unfulfilled, another man's placeholder. Hands suddenly dip beneath the waters, pulling Saint Batman free. The Torchbearer and the Cardinal look down upon their master, pulling free his helmet, allowing him to breathe. Valley doesn't take long, though, demanding to know what happened to the cathedral. They tell him that the cathedral was secured, but the fighting continues in the streets. It'll be a long fight, but that is for another day, the Torchbearer tells him, but Saint Batman struggles to his feet. No, we will not yield. All I require is a boost. Later, the pair dragged the weakened Valley to the Dumas house, and in the cave below, every hour that passes, our enemy gains confidence. The city needs its saint, he tells them, directing them to his venom cabinet. But opening the drawer reveals it empty, all the venom having disappeared. Lose something? It happens to the best of us. Turn calls out from behind them, and Valley stares at the intruders, his breathing labored. Shiva and the Spawn, I should have guessed. He demands to know how they found the cave, but Madeline appears behind him. She goes to him, her hands reaching for him lovingly, explaining that she can no longer stand by his side and aid a cause that she does not believe in. For a moment, Jean-Paul stares at the woman that has been by his side for decades. Very well, he tells her, and shock pulls across the woman's face as she feels the blades of the Cardinal's gauntlet piercing her back. She falls, blood pooling beneath her, and then Valley turns to the intruders. You invaded my city. You broke into my home. You turned my wife. Your death will not be swift. The two get ready for a fight as Turn pumps himself up. The Torchbearer steps forward, igniting the sword in his hands. A child and a woman against us? You must all be mad. They're not alone, a voice snarls from the shadows. They have me! Batman calls from the dark ceiling of the cave, his body regrown, and the nanites swirling around him like tiny bats. Valley stares up at the dark savior of Gotham, screaming, "Bruce, no! Slaughter them all!" Shiva smiles, pressing a button, blowing up the computer, throwing their opponents to the floor. Turn steps forward, his body now massive with venom, and he lifts Jean-Paul to his feet, telling him that tonight it was designed to weaken him, exhausted. "I've been waiting a long time to kill you," he tells the Saint. But Valley raises his hand, throwing Turn off with sonics built into the gauntlets. Pain rips through his body as Turn throws his enemy away, crumpling to the ground. Shiva leaps forward, kicking Valley across the face, and elsewhere the Torchbearer tries to pull Cardinal to his feet. But a cloud of nano bats swarm into him, ripping him off his feet, carrying him through the cave. They crash through the ceiling and into the darkness of the manor above, and quickly the Cardinal tries to follow. But the nano bats swarm around him as the voice of Batman fills his ears. "Your Saint told me that I needed stronger codes. I can see it now. I see what must be done," he tells him, and the Cardinal swings his wrist blades trying to cut through the swarm, but as the cloud lessens, he sees the Torchbearer before him. The Cardinal stares down at the blood that glistens on his blades, and at his friend's head, laying next to his body. The Cardinal screams in terror as the nanobats begin to swarm again, and in the cave below, Shiva and Saint Batman are locked in combat. She rains blows down on Jean-Paul, trying to finish the job, but they're distracted as the body of the Cardinal falls next to them. Using this moment as a distraction, Jean-Paul backhands her away, and he struggles to his feet, moving to the body of Turn. "I have become reliant on venom. In time, I will abstain, but tonight I will find a new source." He reaches down, his clawed hands grasping the arm of Turn, and with a vicious snarl, he rips it free of Turn's body, blood spewing around the chamber. He throws Turn aside and begins to drink the venom-laced blood dripping from the arm. He smiles as the new energy begins to course through his body. Much better. He charges across the room, his fist slamming into Shiva, but suddenly, the swarm of nanobats is there, taking the image of Batman. "Your time is over, Jean-Paul," he hisses, and behind him, Turn struggles to his feet, discovering the bladed gauntlet of Jean-Paul's Azrael armor. Jean-Paul reaches out for the solid form of Bruce, fighting against the swarm. "You have no idea what I believe, Bruce. You never did." But Bruce sets off a taser, giving him and Shiva a moment of escape. But Jean-Paul struggles to his feet, quickly charged by venom. "I am the Batman of faith," he preaches, reaching out and lifting the giant penny over his head. "But you, the only thing that ever motivated you was fear." He throws the penny, launching it across the room, flattening Batman and Shiva. He then lifts a boulder over his head, crossing the room to finish Bruce and Shiva off. "I am too strong to fail. You were always destined to lose, to break, to fall aside in favor of the one true Batman." And then he stops. As a blade pierces his chest, the rock tumbles and Valley falls to his knees. Behind him, Turn grabs his body, bringing his knee hard into the man's spine, breaking his back. The heroes stand over their fallen enemy. "It's over. You lost," Turn tells him as Jean-Paul can do nothing more than moan. Turn turns and looks at Shiva. Now they can reopen the city and reconnect Gotham to the world. They can give the world hope again. "The world is broken. It's way too late for that," Batman tells them. Turn and Shiva turn to him, confused. "What are you saying, Bruce?" But Batman's eyes burn as the nanites swarm around him. "You came here to save the city, to reconnect Gotham, to heal the wounds, but some wounds don't heal. Sometimes they have to be made new. It must take care of itself. What's good for the world is not good for Gotham." The nanite bats swarm, attacking Shiva and Turn, ripping them to pieces. And in the quiet of the cave, Batman stands over Jean-Paul, admitting that Jean-Paul was right, that he kept Gotham standing. But his biggest mistake was relying on anyone but himself. "But now, I'll never have to do it again," Batman tells him with an evil smile crossing his face. "Gotham is mine, and I am hers." Tempest Fugonaut looks on at this dark world, realizing that there is no aid to be found here. Casting his gaze elsewhere, the last view of this dark and broken world is Batman standing over the crucified body of Azrael, and the people of Gotham cheering him below. There is no hope for crisis here. And that concludes the first of the Tales of the Dark Multiverse, evil and twisted versions of your favorite superheroes. Now, there's already a bunch of these, and I'd like to start bringing them to you on a pseudo-weekly basis, so I hope you guys are excited about that. Thank you so much for your support today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get your creepy and twisted stories of the DC Universe on a weekly basis. And I'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian. Oh, don't forget to hit that bell because it tells you when more videos come out. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.